They were very concerned about access onto Woodburn and strongly preferred there not be access onto Woodburn. We indicated that we think Woodburn access is important, but improvements would need to happen to Woodburn, and that's conditions if we get there tonight. The second condition states that they need to comply with the Tangerine Corridor Overlay District in terms of view preservation.
We cannot deny access to the public thoroughfare for any property owner. All properties must have access to our network. ADOT manages and controls the access to Tangerine. Access to, if they cannot get access onto Tangerine, because there is today, as we speak, a no access easement that actually that they would have to cross to make that access work onto Tangerine. ADOT does not have to allow this. I don't know if the applicant's been successful yet with ADOT to grant that access. With regard to Woodburn, they have to be able to be allowed access to Woodburn because that's the only other adjacent street if Tangerine is not available.
A little further discussion, if I may, with Paul Kiesler regarding the access. I'd like to clarify a couple of things. One is, are we saying that if approved, they may only have access off of Tangerine? That's the first part. Now, if that's the case, anybody who wants to go east or south would have to go down Tangerine and do a U-turn on Tangerine. That couldn't, to me, I can't imagine that's a safe traffic situation. Second is, since this neighborhood was planned for over 1,700 residential units originally, were the streets designed to handle specifically Woodburn? If this, from the numbers that were presented tonight, it says, you said currently, well, it's a low number, but saying it was designed for 1,707 units, and even if the apartments went in, we'd be at 1,163 units, which would still be less than supposedly what it was designed for. Yet we hear from all the neighbors that they have traffic issues on Woodburn. So what's going on here?
Originally, when Rancho Vistosa was designed for the 1,900 some odd residents in that area, Woodburn and Rancho Vistosa Boulevard were to meet at a four-way intersection that allowed a stoplight to be put in. Through development over the years, there was a neighborhood, and I forgot the actual neighborhood designation. It's the neighborhood that is northeast of the Woodburn Rancho Vistosa intersection. It's the neighborhood just north of the vacant parcel between the residence and Safeway. When they built that neighborhood, they essentially closed down that intersection. The property line moved to the middle of the intersection. That's correct. So there is, and I don't think anybody can deny, a traffic issue at the intersection of Woodburn and Rancho Vistosa today. There's difficulties with Safeway, getting in and out of Safeway. Mm-hmm. There's difficulties getting in and out of Woodburn. And we have had traffic studies for this for some previous developments in the area. And the intersection of Woodburn and Rancho Vistosa is causing quite a bit of the congestion on Woodburn. So there isn't a free flow of traffic. What we have suggested, what staff is bringing forth to you, is if this apartment complex is developed and they do have access onto Woodburn, what we're asking for is for this development to shift the functional limits of that intersection far enough south to recreate that four-way intersection, to have the ability to have a stoplight, clean up the Safeway, clean up the congestion on Woodburn. It actually, if it moves south, it will help Woodburn. It will clean that congestion up.
So you're saying one of the major reasons we have a traffic issue there is that intersection, which, I mean,
yes,
we all drive that. We know that's a really bad intersection. And that if these apartments go in, one of the conditions would be they would have to pay to realign that street, put in the signal, clear up that intersection, which would clear up a lot of the traffic issues on Woodburn.
Well, yes, one was that for sure they will have to move that intersection down to create the opportunity for a stoplight. During their development, they're going to have to do a traffic impact analysis, and if that traffic impact analysis also warrants a signal right there, right then, which From the previous developments that have explored developing over there, there's a very, very high probability a traffic signal will be warranted.
Now, wouldn't they, even if they got the Tangerine Road access, wouldn't they still need Woodburn access? Because I would imagine that in
Yes.
the morning, they're going to go out Woodburn on a Rancho Vistoso, but in the evening, coming home, they'll come in through Tangerine.
Your engineering staff has some extreme concerns with respect to full access on Tangerine. Tangerine's a major arterial. It's a major high-speed arterial, one of the arterials that we have the most volume in this town. We do not want to see crossing of that due to this apartment complex. So that would limit this apartment complex to right in and right out. So that wouldn't work. They would have to go down to go east, do a U-turn, which is the most dangerous of all traffic movements. So access onto Woodburn would help make it safer for everybody in the region.
Well, just the follow-up question, it almost sounds like what you're saying from an engineering or traffic perspective, you almost wouldn't want them to have access on Tangerine.
My professional opinion is we prefer access purely for cleaning up the congestion and safety reasons.
And you're saying with that, if they were all on Woodburn, with this changing intersection, that
The
there
capacity.
would not be a problem on Woodburn?
Woodburn was already designed for a much higher capacity.
If it is zone commercial, then would the access still be cut across Woodburn?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we would expect, and I add my voice to engineering, access on the Woodburn would always have been anticipated,
Okay.
regardless of the use of this site.
Thank you.
One other comment on access. Councilmember Solomon, you asked about the access. So what we're proposing, you can see there's one here and one here. There's currently a median break right here. We have a traffic impact analysis that's been prepared and reviewed by ADOT. They have given us preliminary green light to pursue these two access points. This one here would allow a left turn out that can get you on the road in this direction. So residents would be able to come in and out, heading in both directions.
We also heard the statement that now it looks like they may be able to just have a Tangerine access, yet we're told there may be some real concerns, safety concerns with that, but now it looks like it's been clarified that the Tangerine access could include opening in the median where they could turn left. So I think maybe I'd address it to Paul Kiesler to clarify that issue. And can you clarify the Woodburn issue? Because that seems to be a big bone of contention here. And as a minor part of that, even if we had all the vehicle access on Tangerine, are we going to have pedestrian access on Woodburn?
With regard to Tangerine, let's take these one at a time. As the applicant, I don't know, Paul, can you pull up the site plan? One of our concerns, and I've been in consultation with the town engineer on this, one of our concerns is on the western access, where that lines up with that existing median break. And we don't know the answer to this because we have not seen the traffic impact analysis yet. This is all speaking from engineering intuition, let's call it that. That intersection may or may not warrant a signal, depending on the volume and safety aspects. There's several aspects that warrant a signal. If a signal was warranted there, that would create a situation because that signal would be too close to the First and Tangerine signal. So there's a safety concern there. We don't know what that answer is. I'm not saying that I'm against access onto Tangerine. Presently, I don't know if ADOT will allow it. They haven't so far. Mr. Olin has stated that they're almost there. When they get there, then they're there. But presently today, as we sit here, it's not allowed. If it does get allowed, and we do have that full access, one of my concerns, again, as your engineer, is whether a traffic signal would be warranted there. Would there be enough safety concern? Darting all the way across Tangerine, it's an issue. With regard to Woodburn, again, Woodburn was always designed to have the capacity of not only a commercial site here, but an entire apartment complex to the north. It's always been designed. The capacity is there from a engineering and a theoretical standpoint. However, and I think the residents, every resident here can attest to it, I've driven on Woodburn many a time. There is a congestion problem there, but a lot of that congestion problem has to do with the configuration of the intersection. If that were cleaned up, if Woodburn was actually widened, and again, this would fall on the traffic analysis that the developer would be responsible to do, they would have to mitigate whatever traffic concerns there are. So I don't know if, speaking right now, let's just say hypothetically, ADOT says no, and we have to allow access onto Woodburn, be it commercial, be it apartment, whatever's approved to go on there. There might be a situation where they have to widen the road like it is just up to the north to provide a two-way left turn lane, or twiddle, as we call it. This is all conjecture, again, without seeing the traffic impact analysis, without having them do an analysis on the configuration of Woodburn. However, moving the intersection south would clean up a lot of issues, and we look at it from a regional standpoint.
Why was the Woodburn built in its configuration versus wider? And I need Paul to address that.
Yes, Mayor Hiremath, residents of Rancho Vistoso, every street in Rancho Vistoso has been developer-driven. That means that the town has not constructed these, the developer has constructed these. And through time, the developer has had to meet needs of certain areas of certain streets. So certain streets had to be widened as time goes on. This street will probably be the same. There was a lot of conjecture of traffic congestion with respect to it. It's a two-lane street right now. How are you going to accommodate people turning left into this apartment complex? Well, the simple answer is when they do a traffic analysis, again, haven't seen it yet, but when they do that traffic analysis, it may very well require an additional lane to be built. So the developer, because they have spent so much money in Rancho Vistoso, they build per the need. The right-of-ways are already pretty much set, but there's room in these right-of-ways to expand many of the streets. The one street that has been built to its capacity is Rancho Vistoso. That's the ultimate capacity of that street. What you see today is what you'll see in the future.
Mr. Mayor, the third question was the Woodburn intersection. If we were to have a signal, how does that signal spacing different than putting a signal on Tangerine close to that intersection? And again, we need Paul to respond to that.
Mayor Hiremath, residents again. There's a difference between the two streets. Tangerine is a limited access highway. It's actually a state route. Rancho Vistoso is a major arterial for the town. But the projected traffic for Rancho Vistoso is about a fourth of what the projected traffic for Tangerine will be. So the spacing of the lights, placement of lights is not an arbitrary thing. You don't just put up a light because you think you need one. There's a lot of safety analysis that goes into it. Volume of traffic, how long you have to wait to make a turn. All these factors go in. The higher the volume, the farther you want to space lights. That's why you can have lights closer on Rancho Vistoso with a safe impact and not have lights closely spaced on Tangerine, because that's not the intent of the Tangerine Highway corridor.
And I would just add, we see interesting spacing on traffic signals all over our region. So rules on that are not hard and fast, and they're tailored to specific individual circumstances and conditions. Question number 6 was what's the distance from the proposed driveway to the intersection of Tangerine? I think we're talking about the visual on the screen, and maybe the applicant can respond to that. It's several hundred feet, maybe as much as 400.
I would say it looks about 400 feet to me. Mr. Olin might be able to answer.
And this is the eastern driveway, the one to the right, and it's spacing from the Rancho Vistoso signal, about 400 feet.
So I would like to make one clarification for the audience. My suggestion on the realignment of Woodburn wasn't to realign Woodburn down south to where the existing Safeway entrance is, the northernmost entrance on Safeway. The realignment I'm talking about is about approximately 30 feet, so that a road could be constructed or a drive aisle through the vacant parcel to connect to Safeway, and then limit that existing Safeway to a right in, right out.
How do you make sure you don't get something you think you're going to get and don't get. And I think that's one of the problems with this property, the conditions, if it goes through, if it goes any further, that needs to be dealt with.
It will be developed. Now, from that perspective, we have to say, when it's developed, what are the legitimate issues? Okay, one definite legitimate issue that's been brought up today is traffic. There have been a lot of good comments about even if there's no access to Woodburn, what situation will be created on Tangerine. Part of the difficulty is, once again, is since we haven't gone through a detailed analysis, we don't know the answer to that, so we can't put conditions onto it. No matter what goes there, we do have to address the traffic problem on this. There's more information needed here. I'm not sure that we have the information to make a final decision